Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the Ultimates 2 series, this is going to be our last video, but this is going to be the moment where we can say the Ultimates have now become Avengers because they are going to avenge America that has fallen to their enemies. Now, for me personally, this is kind of Nick Fury's fault, and let me explain why. So when it came to Nick, S.H.I.E.L.D., and also the American government, back in Ultimates 1, their main goal was just to put together a Ultimates team, and that was really it. A team used as a way to protect America, but to also go after super villains. But Ultimates 2 showed that Nick Fury was lying the entire time, that he really did plan to use the Ultimates as a way to attack other countries around the world, especially countries in the Middle East who are building up nuclear missiles that could be used against America down the road. Now, when it came to different people of the world, they told Nick, hey man, you gotta stop. Like, listen, we allowed you, America, to go ahead and build the Ultimates because of what happened on 9/11. But here you are now creating more different kinds of super beings to use for different operations around the world. If you continue down this path, sooner or later, you're going to have different countries coming together to stop you guys, to bring you guys down. And Nick took that warning and said, whatever, and continue on and began to use different members of the Ultimates to attack different facilities around the world in different countries, nuclear facilities. And really, we saw that at the very beginning of our last video, where you actually had the Ultimates go into a country in the Middle East to shut down that nuclear facility. But here's the thing, because as we dive into today's storyline, we do pick up with that exact moment once again. But this time, we shift our focus over to a young boy known as Abdul. Now, when it comes to Abdul, he's very upset with the idea that America, that the Ultimates came into his country and shut down their nuclear facility. And he says, what rights do they have to come into our country and do that? Because let's not forget, America also has nuclear weapons, and they are continuing to build those nuclear weapons. So how in the world is it okay for them to have it, but not us? And so when it comes to Abdul, he wants to get revenge for America coming into his country illegally. Now, while riding away on the back of a truck, he does meet a young man who says he does have something that could possibly help Abdul get revenge against the Ultimates, especially Captain America. Now, a few days after that moment, we do jump over to France, and we do pick up with a special meeting taking place in the past. And this shows, when it comes to this meeting, that you did have different countries begin to work together to build a new super team as a way to use against America, better known as the Liberators. And we saw them at the tail end of our last video. Now, here's the thing about the Liberators. Each member comes from a different country around the world. Now, China, they are the only country that went out of their way to send over 2 people to join the Liberators. The first would be Crimson Dynamo, their own version of Iron Man. And then you have the Abomination, their own version of the Hulk. Now, Russia has sent over their own version of Thor, better known as Perun. Now, North Korea had their own version of Quicksilver, better known as Hurricane. Syria has sent over their version of the Wasp, and that would be Swarm. Now, when it comes to France, they also sent someone over who's very similar to Jamie Madrox, and that would be the Schizoid Man. Now, the last person to actually join the Ultimates was the Colonel. But we saw the Colonel just a moment ago. It is Abdul. Abdul went through a different super soldier program, but being the only person after Steve Rogers to be able to take the serum and actually survive and become a super soldier. But he now becomes the leader of the team. And so you had all these different countries come together to say, we need this team to bring down America, to bring America to its knees, but to also get rid of their superhero team as well. But now we are able to jump to the present day where we do pick up with the Liberators. Now for them, they had officially won. They brought down S.H.I.E.L.D. They brought down America. They brought down the Ultimates, and they were also able to capture Nick Fury as well. For them, it is officially over. Now, something I do want to mention is that Loki is also part of the team as well. Now, here's the thing. Loki was working in the shadows as a way to help the team out, to make sure they were able to pull everything off. But let's not forget, there are also two traitors to the Ultimates as well who are helping out the Liberators. And that will be Hank Pym and also Black Widow. And speaking of Black Widow, we have to remember that she was with Iron Man when things had popped off. Now, when it comes to Black Widow and Iron Man, they were engaged. Like, Iron Man was very in love with her, to the point where he gave her her own iron suit. But that iron suit is going to save Tony's life right here, because when he gave her the iron suit, he also gave her a wave of nanites in her bloodstream that allowed her to control the suit. But here's the catch. He's the one who can control the nanites, and so he was able to tell them to shut down her body, to give her a brain injury. But then he also gets a bottle of liquor and hits her right in the head to knock her out. And once he does that, he's all like, okay, you know what? It's time for me to get back to work. It's time for me to go into my workshop, and time for me to begin to save the Ultimates. But now we have to jump over to Hawkeye. Now, when it comes to Hawkeye, in our last video, after watching his entire family be killed off, well, he was taken in as a hostage, and they began to torture him, hoping that he would share all the different kinds of secrets about America, S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick, and anything else on his mind. But now it's time for him to escape. Now, he's tied up, but he says, you guys should have taken my fingernails, because I can use those as a weapon. And so he does. And he was able to kill every single person in that room. And once he's out of his binds, a bunch of more soldiers barge in with guns. But they all die just like that. And now Hawkeye is able to escape from this facility. But now we have to jump over to Steve Rogers. Now, when it comes to Steve Rogers, he was locked up in our last video because the Ultimates plus Nick believed that it was Steve who had killed off the family of Hawkeye, who had kidnapped Hawkeye, not knowing the man was innocent. It was Black Widow. But anyways, you have few members of the Liberators on their way over to his cell to bring him over to the Colonel, because the Colonel wants to be the one to kill off Steve Rogers, except they have no idea that Steve Rogers has been released from his binds, has been released from his cells by the Wasp. And so as soon as they walk in and they were able to capture her, well, he gets up and says, let go of my girlfriend. And we already know that this man plans on beating them down. But now we have to jump over to Thor. Now, let's not forget, Thor was also locked up in previous videos of our coverage over Ultimates 2. Really, he was locked up back in Volume 1 of Ultimates 2 because he had supposedly attacked a group of police officers who were trying to stop a protest. Now, here's the thing, because after he had supposedly did that, the Ultimates stepped in, fought him, defeat him, and locked him up. But you had Thor say, guys, we're being played here by my evil brother Loki. But nobody believes that Thor, one, has a brother, and two, that Thor is the god of thunder. And here is the reason why. So when it comes to the Ultimate Marvel Universe, the original one, it was built in a way where it says, hey, think about the real world. Think about our world. What would happen if heroes had appeared in our worlds? And so when it comes to Thor, they don't believe that he is the god of thunder. They believe that he is a mentally ill patient that had escaped from his brother, stole his brother's tech to become Thor, because Loki had also pretended to be a scientist who was working on some new technology that would allow someone to be a very powerful person like Thor was. Every power Thor had came from tech that he stole from his supposed brother. But no one knows it was Loki just playing mind games. But you have Thor sitting in his cells begging for help, begging for his father to finally help him, to get him out of there so that he'll be able to stop Loki. Now, by the time you have Steve Rogers and the Wasp being able to take down a few soldiers that were sent in by the Liberators to bring Steve over to the Colonel, well, you have the Wasp realize they should also free Thor. Thor can help them take down the Liberators, except when they go over to Thor's cell, Homeboy disappeared, and so we're left to wonder, did Odin finally step in and help Thor out? But we have no idea for the moment. Now we have to shift our focus back onto the Liberators. Now, they were able to find the president. He was just hiding on Air Force One, just flying around the country, just hoping that something would pop up that could hopefully save the country so that he'll be able to land, but to also resume his day. But unfortunately, the entire country has been taken over. But either way, he is found by the Liberators. Now you're probably wondering, hey, Fresh, we should know that America has allies. Where are they at? They can't help out. And the reason why? Because the Liberators told the allies of America, if you try to step in, we will use the nuclear missiles that America has as a way to attack your country. We will blow you up. And that's huge because let's not forget, there's Captain Britain, Captain Italy, Captain Spain. Those characters could help out. But they now can't go into America because if they do, their country could possibly be bombed. But getting back over to Steve Rogers and the Wasp, you have the two characters trying to sneak into the White House. They're trying to at least secure the White House, but to also get Nick Fury back and a few members of the Ultimates who are with him. Now, here's the thing. They do go in there thinking that, okay, we are about to enter another battle, but they don't. And the reason why? Because Hawkeye is already there. He cleared the room out. He was able to save Nick, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, and also Betty Ross as well. But here comes the next problem. One of the soldiers that Hawkeye had attacked did not die. He survived. And so he warned the Liberators, and they sent in another wave of soldiers to attack the Ultimates in the White House. Now, y'all, we have to jump over to Iron Man because this is going to lead into a big moment for Iron Man. One of my favorite moments for Iron Man in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, here's the thing. Iron Man is wearing an older suit, and so his staff believes that he is trying to use that suit as a way to fight against the Liberators. But he says, no, there's no way that this suit will give me the chance to actually take down one of their members. I need an upgrade. I need something bigger. And so he flies into space. He goes to his space station to get something else that he has been working on. But y'all, before we are able to see that big moment, we have to shift over to another character who has one of the best moments of the book, another big moment in this book. Now, at first, it may seem like he is just a random guy. And this random guy does get squished by one of the robots that are being used by the Liberators. Except that robot doesn't realize that he had just stepped on Bruce Banner. Now, let's not forget, the world believes that Bruce Banner is dead because he was supposed to be killed off after killing 800 people in Manhattan. They dropped a nuke on him. The Ultimates at first believe it actually worked, that he had died, but in reality, he survived and he was hiding this entire time. But now he's back in New York. Someone just stepped on him and he does transform right into the Hulk, and he is ready to go. But now we have to jump into the next chapter. Now, here's the thing, y'all. Here is the thing about this chapter. It is literally just our heroes fighting against the Liberators, trying their best to take them down, but our heroes are struggling against them. Now, when it comes to Mark Millar, he does not spend that much time showing our heroes struggling. And yes, there are one-on-one battles happening everywhere. You have the Hulk fighting against Abomination. You have Steve Rogers fighting against the Colonel. You have the Wasp fighting against the Swarm. You have Quicksilver going up against Hurricane. And yes, our heroes are struggling at first, but Mark Millar says no. This new team, the Liberators, they're new. They're still trying to learn how to be a great team. But the Ultimates have been a team for a while now. They have been heroes for a while now. And so our heroes know what to do to help them win a battle against their opponents. And so now our heroes turn the tables against the Liberators. Now, the first battle I do want to talk about will be Quicksilver going up against Hurricane. Now, here's the thing, because at first you have Hurricane actually thinking that she's on the same level as Quicksilver, but you didn't have Quicksilver tell her, no, I can tell that you are nowhere near my level. And the reason why, because you haven't even reached Mach 10, Mach 5. And so because of that, your speed is nowhere near my level of speed. And so you have Quicksilver just grab her, and he goes beyond her limit. And her body cannot handle that limit at all. And so we begin to see her body literally disintegrate right in front of us to show that Quicksilver was on a whole other level. Now, the Wasp, she also gets a big moment in this book. Now, when it comes to the Wasp, in Ultimates 1 and Ultimates 2, most of the team, really most of the people of America looked at her as the weakest member of the team. Like, what can she do to actually help the team out? Well, you see, Hank Pym gave her something, a small sample of his giant man serum, and she takes it. And so she grows really big. And so when it comes to her battle against Swarm, well, she just stomps on her, killing her off just like that and moving on with her day. But now we have to jump over to Iron Man. Now, when it comes to Iron Man, let's not forget, Homeboy went into space to get something that could most likely help him take down the Liberators, to take down the soldiers who are fighting alongside with the Liberators. And that is what I call his Megazord. But he does actually have a code name for it, and he calls it Iron Man 6. But either way, you do have Iron Man just come down out of the sky with this huge weapon, just blasting folks left and right. And so the Ultimates now have the Liberators on the run. Now, when it comes to Hulk's battle, it's not as big as the others for me because it's the Hulk. It's Ultimate Hulk. We already knew that he would find a way to win. But if he does find a way to win, most likely, if you are the one fighting against him, you are going to die. And so when it comes to the Abomination, he's killed off. You have the Hulk just break his head right off his body and move on with his day to help out the rest of the Ultimates to save the city. Now, I want to focus on the battle between Steve Rogers and also the Colonel, because when it comes to their battle, it really shows that the Colonel is nowhere near the same level as Steve Rogers. Now, at first, he is able to get a few blows on Steve Rogers, but after a while, Steve is able to get the edge over him. And for me personally, it's the book saying, listen, the Colonel is a super soldier, but so is Steve Rogers. And Steve has been a super soldier much longer, and he knows how to win different kinds of fights like this one right here. And so even though you do have the Colonel being able to get a few blows on Steve, Steve is still the stronger one here, and Steve is able to actually win. Now, there is a moment where you have the Colonel try to cheat, But you didn't have Steve being able to get some help from the Hulk. And then after that help comes, you didn't have Steve being able to go ahead and kill off the Colonel just like that. But now we have to jump over to Loki. Now, Loki is the last member standing here, and Loki is really powerful. And when it comes to the Ultimates, no one on their team can actually go toe-to-toe with Loki. Maybe the Scarlet Witch, but even then, she can easily lose to him. And he knows that, but she says, listen, I'm not going to try to fight you. Instead, I'm going to use my abilities to help our odds here, to bring someone over here who can most likely stop you. And Loki knows who she is talking about. Ultimate Thor. He appears and he is ready to go one-on-one with his brother Loki. And so now we get into the final battle between Thor and Loki. Now, I really want to focus more on Loki here for a moment, because when it comes to Loki, we have to remember that yes, he is the god of mischief, which means that he is able to play with reality to a certain level. And so when it comes to Loki, he's trying his best to continue to play mind games on Thor. But the problem is for Loki, Thor can no longer be tricked so easily. Thor now knows what's real and what's fake. He is able to break through all the different kinds of illusions that Loki is trying to throw at him. Now, when it comes to Loki, he knows that he needs some backup. And so out of nowhere, we do see all these different kind of creatures from Asgardian mythos coming into Earth and now helping Loki fight against the Ultimates and Thor. And this is really a big moment for the Ultimates, because the Ultimates the entire time did not believe that Thor was actually the god of thunder, that he was actually from Asgard. There was actually a Loki out there playing mind games. But now with them seeing Thor and Loki and also all these different kinds of creatures, they now believe that Thor is really the god of thunder. Now, when it comes to Odin, he's on Thor's side here. He wants to make sure that Loki does lose. And so you have Odin send in forces from Asgard to back up Thor, the Ultimates, when it comes to fighting against the forces of Loki. And so by the end of the battle, you have Thor being able to once again defeat his evil brother Loki. Now, the story does wrap up very quickly, where you do have the Ultimates begin to say, you know what, it's time for us to no longer have connections to S.H.I.E.L.D. You see, when it comes to Steve Rogers and the rest of the Ultimates, they realize that this was Nick Fury's fault. The idea of working alongside with the American government and being used as a military force brought this upon themselves, brought this upon America. But also you have Steve Rogers and the rest of the Ultimates saying, we cannot just stand up for America. We have to stand up for the entire world. And so this is the Ultimates saying goodbye from being controlled by Nick Fury. But the best part of the book is where you have Hawkeye being able to get revenge against Black Widow. Because remember, he saw her right before he was taken away after his family was killed off. And so he went to a nearby hospital. He found her and she tries her best to get away, but unfortunately she does not. And you have Black Widow be killed off by Hawkeye in a matter of seconds. And for him, it's the best thing ever, because at least he was able to revenge his family. And this is actually going to lead to Hawkeye changing completely in later books down the road, especially Ultimates 3. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.